We're going to be talking tonight about how to build a referral-based business. And that might seem a little odd to you because you may not be familiar with how you build a referral business. So it's going to be a lot of fun for me to bring that across to you tonight. Before we get going, some basic principles of business apply to our business too. We are in a unique industry. We do have a niche market for our product, but basic business principles still apply to our business. And many people, unfortunately, don't have experience in business with that foundation to build upon. And you don't want to flounder around. We need to get the foundation set in place right now. And referrals are a huge component to our success. But we're more focused on signing people up, benefit of having referrals that go on and on and on, well beyond each sale that we make. So we really do need to look at that. Behind the scenes, every successful small business has learned how to network for business. That's the bottom line. Every successful entrepreneur has learned how to build relationships and to ask for referrals. Every successful real estate agent, for instance, or insurance agent lives off referrals. I can tell you, coming out of that industry of real estate, the very top producers in that business, they never have to look for new business. You'll see them put ads out there. Of course, they want to keep their name out there. But to be honest with you, a lot of those ads are really just to make their existing clients feel better because they're in the newspaper. If they work their business the right way, the smart way, they really don't have to look for business. It comes to them. But we need to master that referral process. We start all over again at the beginning after every single sale if we can't figure out how to master the referral process. You should never have to start over after you've completed a sale in anything, whether it's houses or ionizers, it doesn't matter. It doesn't make sense that you would start over from scratch. After every transaction, you go through a water share, you finally bring it to closure, and you get the paperwork in, get the unit installed, then you got to go find some more people to stick in the pipeline. It really doesn't make a lot of sense. So hopefully I can connect this for you. Never, ever underestimate the power of people. Again, we're in the people business. We're people buy into us, and we need to be looking for people always. So we're in the people business, and that doesn't mean that we just snag people, sell them, and run away. In my world, unfortunately, I tag that as love them and leave them. We don't just go snag them, sell them, and run. It means that we need to build relationships every single step of the way. And frankly, if you look at an industry like real estate, the real work begins after that sale. It means to me we need to build those relationships and relationships that will lead us toward a successful transaction and a relationship that we will continue to build well beyond the sale. It's not just transaction by transaction, and so that's what we need to focus on. So what does that relationship mean? Well, you might be in a mental panic right now and thinking about how am I supposed to, form or build or sustain hundreds of relationships at a time. If that's what you're thinking, then you need a very simple reminder, and that is that, if you think about what does, that relationship mean, it means a connection, a relation, association, a link, a correlation, a correspondence, parallel, alliance, and bond. It doesn't mean that you move in with them. It doesn't mean that you spend hours and hours and hours every day on them. But you do need to continue that relationship well beyond the transaction. There are lots of ways to create and sustain thousands upon thousands of relationships without it so consuming in your world. It's not as good as you might be thinking. And really, when you build a referral business, that is residual business. We're in an industry where we're trying to find, players, serious business people, and their efforts, of course, will build us a residual business. But we can have our own residual without another person, in our team at all. Many forms of having residual business. By building a referral base, you don't have to depend on others, if you will, others to be making sales for you to see that residual. You can actually build that in by having residual business of your own or referral business, if you will. And you don't have to work so hard on each one either. If you've always got something that can be worked in the pipeline. Did you know that word of mouth advertising is the most powerful form of advertising on the planet, with the greatest return ever, by far? If you look at the movie industry, for instance, billions and probably billions of dollars are spent to promote a new film coming out. But what they really try to do? They try to create that buzz on the streets long before they go into print advertising, because they know that if they can create the buzz, the movie's going to be a hit. And so it's always trying to get people involved. Word of mouth advertising is the most powerful that you can get. So isn't it time really for you to somehow be able to create your own buzz, so people, that buzz is going, you don't have to work so hard to get it, to develop your own referral system and to reap the benefits of each sale well beyond the sale. I think this is great that we are able to address, so you can start building upon that. And a step beyond, again, we say people don't care to know till they know that you care. Good grief, we really overuse that. We don't really dissect it the way we should, but people may buy a product or service from a nice person, and they feel good about it. I'm sure you've experienced that, and they bought from a nice person, you feel good. Everybody feels warm and fuzzy, but people refer people to professional services and products because they felt valued by the person they dealt with, not because you became best friends, and not because you really get along, and not because you made a connection or a friendship, but because it was put into a business environment, if you will, and they refer people to those professionals because they felt valued by the person they dealt with. You show them value. Paint the picture of your value. It takes a little work on your part. You can't make assumptions when you're looking at referrals. You have to be sure you reinforce that value and paint the picture of the value on your own. You lead them into giving you more referrals, always and forever. You take the lead on that. It's a little bit of a prompting step of the way. Always looking for that to be able to, or to bring you referrals. So what does that mean, the referral? Well, actually, it's the process of directing or redirecting someone to an appropriate specialist for definitive treatment or professional services. Okay, so it's a business format, if you will. We're actually directing people. You guys can relate to that. When you think about telling somebody about a doctor, getting a referral from your doctor, or telling somebody about a movie or a realtor to work with or whatever. People do not naturally refer. At least most people don't. So you have to suggest that referral. You have to stir it up, if you will. And how do you stir it up? Well, you teach your clients, or you guide them into sending you referrals. And that's where the key comes in. It's where you learn mastery. You need to give them something to show value. So even if it's perceived value, give them something. I will never get over, really, so many realtors, that are so tight, they feel like they earn every penny of that commission. They won't give anything up. Just even sending, for instance, a basket of flowers to the closing table on a real estate property, they could be making a $20,000 commission and they won't cough up the money. Listen, you've got to show people that you value them. You've got to give them something, even if it's perceived. So are you throwing water on people and then you just brag about how they finally got it, while you run off to the bank? Is that what you're doing? That's what most people are doing. But people in professional services understand the value that they can gain by giving something. Gifts come in many shapes and sizes. Gifts can be tangible. They can be intangible. I want to share some things, with you. But, you can relate, I'm sure, that, anytime. You hear it all the time. Well, I got a computer, and hey, they threw in a computer back. I bought the car, and they threw in another year of warranty. I got this, and they threw in that. When people start talking up something that they recently bought, you stop and think about how many times they were really bragging it up. Because not only did they go buy what they set out to buy, but they gave them something. There was something of value that was thrown into the deal, and that made an even bigger value. Some gift ideas for our world, and again, people will get ruffled up because I hear it in every angle of my business, that people that don't give anything, but I know how to get referrals. And so people get something from me. Again, it could be perceived. You could just start saying, I'm happy to do a free installation for you. Well, we do that all the time, right? But you could package it so that it looks like something of value. You might, for instance, depending on your rank, of course, and as you make more money, you can be freer to do things. But you might say, I would like to, give you an extra filter for your unit. So you have one on hand when it's ready to be replaced. And you could talk that up. It's a $120 value, whatever. You could give a faucet. I'm not talking about one of these, bronze $300, $400 faucets that we see out there, but you could offer to give a faucet. You could offer some sort of carrying case for travel, not one of those that we use in our, the hard case that we use as distributors, but maybe there's some sort of travel case, You might give them a how-to book. There's all kinds of them out there on how to cook with Kangen water, clean your house with Kangen water. You might package that up. You might even give them a gift basket that has some how-to book and maybe some spray bottles or something like that, a gift bag. Whatever you decide to give, you make sure that your card says, this is my way of saying thank you for your business. You see what I'm saying, guys? Many things that we take for granted, but many things that if you've never been in the business of sales and real estate or any of those industries, you may not understand the power of that. But what you're doing is you're reminding them, number one, we just did business. And number two, I appreciate that business. I don't care how big your check is. It doesn't matter if you're still getting a $285 check or you're getting a $1710 check or anything in between. You really do need to be thanking people appropriately for that business. Even if it's just a verbal and you don't buy off, say thank you. But you know what? We feel like what we have is so profound that most of us are just saying, wow, they're lucky them. I changed their life. We get excited for them, but we don't keep it in a business perspective. That's something that we just aren't doing well and something that we have to work on. So you give a gift, but when you do, whatever it is, even if you just send a thank you card to these people, you can say, this is my way of saying thank you for your business. You need to let them know you value them, right? And if you give, I just want to, as a side note, remind you that it's always a tax deduction. You can write off any gift that you give. In fact, go a step beyond. Don't forget to write off things like your gas mileage if you, met up with them or drove to their home or whatever. Any bottle used, any brochures that you gave them, DVDs that you gave. Keep a log of these things, guys, because every single thing involved here is tax deductible for you. But so many of what we share never seems to make its way into deductions. And I tell you this not just to help you financially, but also to make you put your business cap on. You're in business. I know that you might have a big heart. I know that you like to share and you like to bless people. That's great. And if you don't need the money, hey, that's great. Just keep doing it. But if you're like I am, I need to pay my bills, right? And so I've got to look at this as a business. And if you need to pay your bills, with this business, you need to do the same. You can't afford not to do it, right? So we're treating them, like we did them a favor again. We just kind of take it for granted, and in so many ways, we were instrumental in a life change, no doubt about that. But that does not negate the fact that there are customers, and they made a purchase. They coughed up, considerable amount of money for this, and it's a business transaction for you. So you need to act like it. You need to talk like it, and you need to show your appreciation for it. So, there are a lot of things that might need to change in the way you're doing this. I see more appreciation for my business, when I buy a cup of coffee, frankly, than most people in our business show a client. I mean, I don't hear it. I don't see it. I don't see the appreciation. It's almost like, again, like they take the attitude, well, they finally got it. I didn't think those people were ever going to get it. I finally got them to buy a unit. Well, guys, where's the appreciation for the business? Do you even speak the words, thank you for your business? Does that ever come into play? Or are you still in missionary mode? You don't want to talk about business. If you're going to build it, if you're going to do referrals, you've got to address it like a business. And it's time to treat your business like a business and to treat your clients as a source of not just income now, not just for the one you just sold, but ones that will come down the line. And that's what we're trying to get at when we talk about referrals, right? It's profound. Of all the money spent on marketing, on ad campaigns, on signs and billboards and radio, television, or even internet marketing, by far, the most powerful source of your future business comes from those you've already worked with. You may not know that. But again, that's because so many of us are not treating this like a business. Most of what you're going to get is it's not all that spent in advertising. It's a mistake. Again, if I go back to real estate, you can look at agents that spend a stinking fortune. They haven't mastered referrals, so they have to constantly be out there spending money. But by far, you already have the most powerful source of your future business already. And I'm not talking about people getting into business and being distributors, okay? I'm talking about people that aren't distributors that end up giving you business in spite of the fact that they aren't distributors. So what are most people doing? Again, they're loving them and leaving them. I know that sounds crude, but it's true. Get them sold, go in and hook the unit up, pat them on the fanny, and wish them luck, and that's it. And if they don't want to do the business, a lot of us just move on. It's like, well, I sold a unit, and they don't want to do our business, and it's like they're worthless. Like we move on, and we leave referrals on the table as a result. That, frankly, without stepping on toes, is an MLM mentality. It's not an entrepreneur mindset. It's an MLM mentality. It may work in a world where you're driven to sell thousands of people on a low-cost, consumable kind of product, and then you move on mentally. It doesn't work if you want to build a sustainable foundational business. It can't work that way. You're not in that business. You're not selling $30 items. You're selling a big life change, a large ticket, in many ways, tangible product. So now that you know that they are your greatest source of future business, does it make any sense to love them and leave them if you understand that they can be a source if they don't do the business at all? And so let's take a look at that. It's pretty profound. People haven't considered it. We are looking for leads, again, in all the wrong places. Many people have come to our business from another similar business, and they tap into that foundation first. Maybe you were in network marketing, direct sales, you've got a list of people, or you just got a bunch of groupies that would follow you anywhere. Maybe you do. Build a team, and the team will help you build residual income, no doubt about it. But what if you don't have a team? There are many of us, and many of you on this tuning in right now, who are struggling to find those business builders. What if you don't have a team? Or what if your team, you got a little bit of team, but they're not doing anything to build, right? They're not moving. Or what if you haven't found those business builders that you just desperately want in your world? What if you haven't found them? Well, most people quit when it comes down to that. You know what? I hear it all the time. I can't find anybody. Nobody wants to buy these. These are too expensive. Nobody wants to do our business. All kinds of things. People end up quitting because they can't figure all that out. What if you don't have a team pushing residual income and you can't find those people? It's not over, folks. Referral is the answer for you. But that compensation plan, you really have to think about it. And it's, the plan and the corporate strategy really, it's not at all an MLS. We talk about MLM. It's not at all based on an MLM, and it's structured to keep you moving forward. There's always a nugget that this compensation plan tries to get you to do. The bottom line is you got to keep working your own business, and by running fast and working hard, that's how we'll get the business builders, right? People convince themselves, though, that nobody wants to buy, nobody wants to join, and that's simply not true. The bottom line is these people are stuck in MLM mentality. They're not finding the people that they need for that great residual income, and they're not maximizing their transactions. In other words, they're leaving a lot of money on the table. Follow-up that leads to leads. You need a systematic follow-up. We're talking about, of course, the point of sale now. All that, doing all the follow-up and everything before the sale. That's already done. Now we've made a sale. Talking about the follow-up that happens at the point of sale. You need a systematic follow-up. What are you going to do? You're just going to, remember on one day and make a random phone call? Or are you going to have a systematic follow-up? I can tell you right now, you need a system. You need a schedule when you're going to call or when you're going to write them, whatever that tool is, whatever that method is. You need to schedule it. It needs to be a plan of action. Use a database management tool, if you will. A lot of us use things like Outlook. I still use Outlook. And frankly, I use that to the greatest capacity. Because when I'm in Outlook, for instance, if I'm talking to you on the phone or just met with you or whatever, I make sure I go to Outlook and I make personal notes. If they said, yeah, my mother died last year, I'm still struggling, I make notes in my database so that when I call them, I pull that file up and I can say, by the way, how are you guys doing? Hey, by the way, Dad, do you like your new house? Oh, by the way, did your son go off to college? The things that they share with me in personal conversation, I have logged that. And so they don't know that. But when I'm talking to them and I can remember, conversation 6 months ago, something big they told me, it means something. I am showing them value, right? So when I do that, I have a purpose behind everything that we do or everything I do, and that's what you need to do as well. It doesn't have to be elaborate, but you have to have a purpose in it, So, people, a lot of people like to get mail. People love to receive cards. They do. And you might think, oh, I'll send them an email, but I'm going to tell you, still today, people love to get, cards, something in the mail. Postcards. It could be postcards. It could be handwritten. It could be any kind of card at all. But people love to get cards in the mail, especially if they're like, thank you. Share them appreciation of some sort. They love to do that, right? And so one of the things that I do is I use it's an automated system, and it's certainly not something you guys need to do, okay? This is something I started using in real estate a long time ago. It's a membership thing, and frankly, I think there is a chance for people to earn an income. I don't do that. I don't care to do that. I've never done it. All I did is I found something that I thought was masterful. So the bottom line is, in my system, I put on the calendar, when they bought, and so I know exactly when I need to send a thank you note out, and it's all automated for me. So I want to walk through this because I'm giving you an idea of how you're prompting those referrals, okay? These people aren't going to do the business. They're happy to get their unit. You know what? Anytime you sell something, what I consider high ticket, when I say that, I mean anything over $1,000, people get buyer's remorse. They really do. They start getting a little nervous. And so it's important to remind them they did a good job, right? And it's important to thank them. So in this case, it would say, dear whoever, right? Congratulations on taking this giant step toward, now, in parentheses, you'll see there, if it's a business, it's not going to be toward improved fill in whatever they were trying to accomplish. Let's just say it's improved health. Congratulations on taking this giant step toward improved health. As you get more and more familiar with all the amazing features of this technology, I'm sure you'll be more satisfied, even more satisfied with your investment. Most of my clients tell me, quote, this is the best investment for health I've ever made. So that sentence would change, if it was for a restaurant or whatever. Should you have any questions along the way, please don't hesitate to call me. What have I done, guys? It's like sending them a business card. My number is there. It's always there, right? In the meantime, enjoy your endless supply of fresh Kangen water, and I'll be in touch with you very soon. So what am I telling them? Enjoy. It's an endless supply. In other words, it's kind of a hidden message. This is a great thing. It's a great investment. It's going to continue to produce. And I'm also putting my telephone number in there so it's handy, but I'm letting them know I'm going to be calling you. Okay? It's not going to be a call out of the blue. I've told them I'm going to call them. I sincerely appreciate having the opportunity to work with you, and I thank you for your business. I'm excited about the changes you'll experience for yourself, and I'm equally excited about helping your friends and family get headed in the right direction too. Pay it forward. Blessings, Len. Okay, so if you got that note, it might be hard to step away from it right now because you're on this call, but I would assure you, if you got that note, it came in the mail. And by the way, I neglected to tell you that when I send these cards in the mail, they're called photo cards, but it's like getting a 5x7 card that's got a glossy picture on the front. So the first card they get, the thank you card, has a picture of the unit that they bought, right? So it's a reminder. They know what it is, a reminder of it is, here's my phone number, I've paid it forward, you're going to be happy, happy, happy. I'm reminded there's a method to every line that I put in this thank you note. And you're more than welcome, of course, to take that for yourself. But I want to tell you guys, it doesn't have to be elaborate. If you like the idea of having a picture, you could go get cards printed up, blank postcards, and write the same note. You couldn't read my handwriting, by the way, which is one reason this service works for me. But you could do this with a simple postcard. You don't have to be elaborate, right? You could do it with just a blank postcard. But if you like the photo thing, shoot, send it off to get some postcards made up that have a glossy photo on one side and blank on the other side, and write away. But it's important because now you have treated it like a business. You're thanking them for the business. There are lots of messages in this thank you. I have elevated myself up, and it's business, okay? Thank you for your business. It's a great investment. You'll see as you consider this, maybe you're taking a picture of it now, but as you consider each line in this, rest assured there is a method and a purpose behind every line in this thank you. Then I'll do another thing. They're going to get another card from me, right? And one would be a sample, cleaning reminder. This is going to come a couple weeks later, within that first month probably. And it says, I hope all is going well with you and that you're enjoying having an endless supply of Kangen water readily available 24/7. I know I sure do. What am I doing? I'm reminding them of the good job they've done by making this investment, right? I'm not selling them. I'm reminding them. You purchased the highest quality ionizer on the market, and it will produce quality Kangen water for years and years to come, but it does take a little maintenance to keep it running optimally. This is just a friendly reminder to be sure to routinely clean your unit by using the cleaning cartridge that was included with your purchase. I've emailed you a link to a short how-to video to assist in the process. It's very, very simple to do, and it's an important step that you'll need to take routinely in order to maintain the highest quality water possible for you and your family. I set mine up to clean overnight, and when I get up in the morning, it's ready. If I can assist you along the way, please don't hesitate to call me. There's my phone number again, right? In the meantime, pay it forward to your friends and family the way I paid it forward to you. Let me know if I can help by sharing water or information about our technology with others on your behalf. We're changing lives one family at a time, and I'm so happy that you're doing your part too. Oh my goodness. What have I done, guys? First of all, I'm showing value and respect for them all over again. I've reminded them about the investment. Endless supply of Kangen water readily available 24/7. Right? I'm reminding them of what good they've done. Highest quality ionizer on the market, right? And I'm telling them, listen, you need to maintain it. By me telling them that reminder, it shows them that I still care. I didn't leave them. I'm giving them practical little steps on what they can do to make sure that baby's working the way it should 24/7. Not only do we want it to last them for years and years and years, right? But we want it to be, without any drama. We don't want them calling saying, hey, I used to feel great and now I don't. This thing's not working. We want them to have the cleanest possible Kangen water at all given times. So we need to remind them to do that cleaning, right? And so they'll always have good water. They'll be feeling like $1,000,000. And I'm also telling them, I've sent you an email. Look for your email. I sent you an email on the cleaning process. So it's very simple. I snagged one off online, right? And that email, by the way, didn't have a lot of text. It just talked about cleaning the unit. And then I've reminded them it's really, really, really simple. Go to bed, wake up, it's done, right? I'm trying to say, go ahead and do it. It's real simple. And then, of course, the last paragraph, I'm saying, call me if you need anything. In the meantime, pay it forward. I am very professionally, but I'm very directly saying, pay it forward to your friends and family the way I paid it forward to you. I'm reminding them this was a gift, man. We changed your life. But I'm saying it professionally. I'm not going into that missionary mode, right? I'm reminding them, pay it forward the way I paid it forward to you. Let me know if I can help you by sharing the information. What am I doing? They're not doing the work. I'm doing the work. Remember, they're not distributors. They're going to get a referral or a rebate or whatever you decide to call it. They're not going to do any of that work, right? We're changing lives one family at a time, and I'm so happy that you're doing your part too. I'm reminding. You talk about, again, to a top producing real estate agent, and they will have a systematic mail out going to their people, with a little postcard. Hey, I just sold a house in your neighborhood. Hey, it's anniversary time. In fact, that's when I first started using this card service, because again, on the front of the card, I can put whatever picture I want. So when I first started using it in real estate, I would put the house that they bought, on the front of the card. And, so I'd say, welcome home. And then I'd thank them for their business. So it could be anything, right? It doesn't have to be what I do. It doesn't have to be that elaborate. This is just something I've had for years, and it works for me. Get out a postcard. You can do the same thing. And send them a little note. Hey, it's time to clean the unit. I sent you an email. Pay it forward the way I did to you. Just send it to them, guys. Just, stay in front of them. Don't let them get you. So there are other times throughout the years, of course, when it comes to like 4th of July, they'll get a holiday card. And don't forget to it's going to be probably high temperatures on July 4th. Be sure to offer your guests, great Kangen water. Little reminders, Thanksgiving, Christmas, and stuff like that. But I have it in my file to know when the 1-year anniversary is for when they bought their unit. And so I say, hey, it's hard to believe that a year's gone by since you purchased your endless supply of fresh Kangen water. If you're like most people, I'm sure you can't imagine life without it now. I hope you're using all the water options available to you for your skin care, cleaning, etc. There are so many ways to use this amazing technology, and I want you to get the full benefit year after year. If you have any questions along the way, there's my phone number again, right? In the meantime, I wish you well, and I hope that you'll pay the gift forward to others in your life the way I paid it forward to you. Again, we're changing lives one family at a time, and I so appreciate you doing your part too. Guys, powerful words, okay? I'm not talking because I'm not bragging about my words. I'm just saying there is an agenda in this short, sweet little note, okay? And so, what you're saying is, wow, it's been a year, and reminding them that it's an endless supply. and I'm kind of planting that seed. I bet you can't imagine life without it. And then, of course, I'm reminding them, hey, it's not just drinking water. So if they haven't taken that step, towards skincare or whatever, this is kind of a reminder. You got full value, man. You can do so much with this unit. Pay it forward, pay it forward, pay it forward. Another thing I want to bring up before I move on is that when you position yourself to stay in touch with people, whatever that system is for you, it is so much easier to go back, like, let's say, you can go back. Imagine we just came out with the NS spot, right? You're excited. It will be so much easier for you to go to these people and talk to them about another product if you'd stayed in touch. But when you love them and leave them and they're gone a year or two, boy, it doesn't go over very well when you just come back. But when you have served them well, they're like, wow, look at this nice person. They reminded me this and that. Oh, look at this nice person. I can't believe she knows it's 1 year since we bought. They see value. They know you value them, and you know what? They see value. And so you got to do something. So, one way or the other, you got to stay in touch with them. And then there are other opportunities to reach out, in advance filter sales. You could send them an email, let them know, hey, just a reminder, our filters go on sale twice a year. It's a great savings, by the way. When we can get them for $100, it's $20 off. It's huge. And by the way, if you can ever pick them up at a conference or whatever, do it, because you can get them for the $100 with no shipping. But remind them of those filter sales. They need to be sure they're changing the filter. Again, you want them to get good quality water because you always want them loving what they have, right? And so you need to be sure to to let them know in advance of filter sales. Then, of course, again, another good opportunity is the holidays. Reach out for the holidays. It's something that the real estate industry has done for 1,000,000 years. You send people cards, and they can, just little tips, be sure to cook your meal with this, whatever. It's value you're adding. Announce special referral incentives. For example, you could come up with your own incentive. You can say, I'm going to give a free filter plus $100 if you host a demonstration with at least this many couples. There's all kinds of things. Be creative. Use your imagination. You have a business, and all I can tell you is if you can elevate the way you deal with people up beyond just personal water share ministry kind of thing, elevate it up to business, and you continue to reinforce the value, trust me when I tell you, you will get referrals. And I do want to pause for a second because people might be scratching their heads and say, well, why, if they're going to give us referrals, then would they be distributors? Guys, listen, I'm so tired of hearing people say, I've got 1,000 people in my group and nobody's doing anything. Well, you know what? The 1,000 people never planned to do anything. We walk around with a W-9 and we try to get everybody signed up as a distributor. And, I got a great nugget once, and I think it came from Rick Cavano, where I want to find out if you want to do the business. So, I let them know, by the way, we have a lucrative referral program, or, however you want to, stage that wording. And I let them know there's an opportunity for you to build a business with this if you have interest in doing that. But if they don't, guys, they don't get a W-9, okay? They're just going to be an end user for me. And, why cloud the system up when they're not going to do it? One way that I kind of, get them back away from the business, if you want. It's the wrong way of putting it, but I will say, if you would like to join us and join our team, you could fill out the W-9 and you'll officially be a distributor. But of course, there's some expectation. I mean, you would be a business owner, so some expectation to maybe come to meetings or share water, and usually shut down when you tell them. It's kind of expectation. I mean, after all, you're filling out a W-9 and claiming to be a distributor, right? Most people that you got to sign up, they never intended to do anything. And most people, the average consumer has a difficulty with the idea that they might make money on somebody they know. So in other words, most of them don't want anything to do with it. They don't want to be selling their friends or whatever. So if they're not in the business and all they do is get an incentive, a filter, or you could give them monetary. I did the monetary thing, whatever. But they're not in the business, it takes the edge off a little bit. And so be creative. Other opportunities to reach out can lead to many things. Whatever you do, don't love them and leave them. Stay in their face. Use your imagination. Figure out what you can do. And remember to hit while the iron's hot. People are the most receptive, vulnerable, if you will, right after the sale. That's when, we drop the ball. We go in and get it, installed. Hey, it's great, pat them on the fanny, we go home. But that's the time when they should be the most excited. So why are we not suggesting, that we gather some friends together, or maybe you want to do a home demonstration. If you do a home demonstration, I can give you $100 toward your next filter, or whatever. Give them an incentive. They're the most vulnerable to do something right after that sale. Again, some people have remorse. So we need to hammer home that value over and over and over. We don't want to love them and leave them, and then they're not cleaning the unit, and they don't feel as good as they did, and they say, I don't know, wow, I fell for that scam. We don't need to do that, guys. So we need to hammer home the value all the time. Some are excited about the possibilities. So suggest a list of their friends, or again, that home demonstration to celebrate. Maybe it's, hey, this is exciting stuff, man. I bet none of your friends have this technology. Why don't we gather them here? Kind of bring that together. Reach out often from the very, very beginning. Again, you don't want to go back. I made the mistake. Many people in our business have made a mistake. Go back, and it's like, well, where have you been? You need to stay in their life beginning right now with everybody that you're working with. Never stop calling periodically. Again, you may choose to do the card thing, the postcards, or whatever your system is. I don't know. You may opt in for that, but even though you do, you still got to pick that phone up every once in a while. Hey, I was just thinking about you today. How you doing? I sent you that card on the cleaning. I sent you a video. You didn't do it, right? Do you have any questions? Just any excuse. Pick up the phone. How you doing? You know what else is doing, guys? People, we don't need to go over that whole price differential thing, where the products would be the same price if we merchandise them. They would, believe me, by the time you distribute them and package them and all that stuff. But this really takes the edge off. When people see, really, that, they got service before, they were led the way, they got a water share, they were walked into what product, somebody installed that unit, and we still stay in the picture. Boy, oh boy, we don't have to defend the fact that we get paid when they see it that way. So never stop periodically calling. And you know what? Never stop asking for referrals. The four most powerful words my mentor taught me a million years ago, and that is to ask, who do you know? If you met with somebody, for instance, let's say, you make that phone call about cleaning. I know you noticed I'm telling you to, pay it forward and all that, and but you could say, let's say they had, I'm making something up, they had fibromyalgia, okay? And they're happy campers, and they've only owned their unit a little bit. It would be a good time to say, by the way, who do you know? Who do you know that's struggling with what you were struggling with? Who do you know that we can help? Let's pay it forward together. Embrace it. Get them to think about it. When you ask people, who do you know, they usually come up with somebody. But if you never ask, they're never going to come up with anybody. So remember to hit while the iron's hot. Ask for those referrals. Guys, when we treat people in a business fashion, when we elevate up a little bit, it might be a fun business, it's a compassionate business, and it's a business of relationships. We like that, right? But you're still in business. If you're not, that's fine. Do whatever, and pour water and love them and leave them, and do whatever you want to do. But as long as we're in business, we need to step it up, and we need to treat it like a business, and we need to treat them like valued customers. That's the way you want to be treated. That's the way I want to be treated. So why would they be any different? So I hope that you'll look at referrals in a whole different light, and that you'll switch things up. Just treat your business a little differently than maybe you have been. So God bless you all. I hope I gave you a nugget tonight, and I'll see you next week. Take care. Bye.